so before we continue on with the on-water stuff, let's just get down some of the basic fundamentals that you might need to know to go out and target King George whiting. We're assuming that some of the people watching this video have never really done this before, or maybe they've done it a couple of times unsuccessfully. So we're gonna give you as much information as you need without boring you or overcomplicating it. So stick with us here. Okay, so let's start out with the most basic thing. When can you target whiting? Well, absolutely any season. Now let's talk about where. When we're talking about Port Phillip Bay, the best places to target whiting, even though they can kind of be caught anywhere, are the southern reaches. And certainly when you're talking about targeting them in any season, the southern reaches of the bay are the absolute prime areas. So on the western side, to make it easy, let's just go from St Leonard's down to Queenscliff. And on the eastern side, let's say Dramana down to Portsea. If you're within any of those areas, you've got a good chance of catching whiting. But the one thing I will say is the further south you go, the kind of better it gets. And the reason that is because of tidal flow. Now, the big thing about whiting is no run, no fun, no flow, no go. So let's say that you're planning on going whiting fishing and high tide is at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. That period from about 1 o'clock to say 3 o'clock is gonna be the prime time to fish, because that's when you're gonna get the hardest point of the tidal flow. Now, where are you gonna be fishing once you're in those areas? Well, it really comes down to the bottom structure that you're fishing on, and that's really important. In terms of depth, you can catch whiting from less than a metre of water all the way through to 16 metres. But the ground that you're looking for is weedy ground with sand patches. So the whiting hide in the weed and then they come out onto the sand patches to feed. So that's what you want to be trying to do, is anchoring the boat so you're fishing on that sand patch. That sand patch is really important, and it can be the difference between one boat that's right next to you not catching any fish and another boat that's catching a heap of fish because their baits are sitting on those sand patches. So you really need to use your eyes and visually look for it. So one of the most important things that you're gonna need when whiting fishing is the BERLEY basket. It is really hard to get the whiting going and to keep them feeding without one of these. Now, when it comes to filling your BERLEY basket, I like to use BERLEY bombs that are pre-made. You drop those in, and then I add in also some fish pellets, and I add in a little bit of fish oil. Now, it's really important that you don't go like tuna pellets and tuna oil, because that can bring on the pest species, and pest species when you're fishing for whiting are a really big part of the fishing. You're always going to come across them. The one thing that you want to do is always make sure that BERLEY's flowing, and you do that by giving it a good shake, and you'll see through the video we're constantly picking that BERLEY basket up and giving it a shake. Then it comes to your rods, your reels, your rigs and all that kind of thing. This episode is sponsored by Shimano, and we have been using their Taipan Rods and their Nexave Reels. What's really cool about these outfits is they're cheap, but they're really good quality. They're durable, glass rods, the guides are great, they're not gonna rust, they're not gonna break, they're gonna last you a long time. You'll pick up the rod for about 50, 60 bucks, and the Nexave Reel sits around that $100 mark. I really like the 3000 size. I've got it spooled with 12-pound Power Pro. I like using braid because it's that bit more sensitive. It's gonna get you a faster hook set. So you can use mono if you want, but I really like using braid. I'd recommend anyone fishing for whiting uses braid. We're using the 802 2 to 5 kilo estuary Taipan. The reason that I like a longer rod, like an 8-foot rod, is because I can set the hooks a lot quicker, and it's all about a fast hook set with a little nibbly fish. The other cool thing is you've just got nice EVA all the way through, which makes it durable and also sits in the rod holder really nicely. Okay, so if you're starting out targeting whiting, you want to keep your rig simple, but you want to have the right rig. Now, I think when you're starting out, sticking with long shank hooks is the best way to go. They're the kind of hooks where you're going to be holding to the rod and setting those hooks as the fish are biting, which I think is really important when you're starting out to get a good feel for it. I like to use a little bit of red tube, a little bit of red bead on top of my hook, and I want a really long leader. Dropper loop coming off, sinkers going off that, then you've got your hook with a little bit of red tube and bead at the bottom, and that's going to be your ultimate whiting rig.
Much better ground.
Yeah. It's a nice little spot, deep water either side, or shallower water either side, I should say. So when it comes to my squid, I just like it cut in thin strips like this. You just want to make sure that it's not spinning at all, but a thin strip like that, a whiting will find really appealing. So I'm just going to bait. Now I'm using, these are pretty big whiting that I'm targeting here, so I'm using a size 4 hook. So you got to think 6 and 4s are the two main sizes you're going to be using, and that's pretty much going to be how my bait's set out there. That's going to be really appealing to a whiting, as you're about to see. We just got to our spot, had the BERLEY pot down for maybe 4 minutes, and Theo's just hooked up to nice whiting on a mix of pippy and squid, and that's a really nice size whiting, probably sitting almost to that 40 centimetre mark. And they're the kind of fish we're after. So when you're handling them, you just want to grab them firmly just behind the head because they're really wiggly and slippery. If you grab them like that, you'll be fine. You can see those long shanks just create that perfect hookup. And they're pretty easy to get out, generally. Right. So we've been at the spot for about 7 minutes, not even 10 minutes. Burley basket's gone down. We've caught a fish, but it's just one fish in that amount of time. Even though that's a really short amount of time, in this style of fishing, I start kind of going, I'm gonna start thinking about moving soon. I'll probably give it to about 10, maybe 15 at the most, and then it's time to make a move. It could be a move as small as 30, 40 feet that way if you know there's a good sand patch there. And I think once you do come to a good area, polarized sunglasses are really important because you really need to be looking for that weedy ground and those patches of sand. So you drive along slowly, get your mate to look, or you can look over the side of the boat, look for somewhere else that's good, stop, put the belly pot down, start again. Really with whiting fishing by now, should have maybe been two fish, maybe 3, but it's kind of not a fishing like snapper or gummy fishing or something like that where it's set the baits out and wait for the fish to come along. It should start happening pretty quickly. That means you're on the fish. Get him. Yep. So we just pulled up. I was just taking my jacket off for the camera because it makes a lot of noise, and straight away hooked up to a whiting. So there you go. That's kind of the speed that you want it to happen. Like you really want to get to a spot and have the burley basket down after you've anchored and hook up straight away. That kind of gives me a good vibe that we're on a good spot, and you just want to hope that it doesn't slow down. You just want to get that firm grip, and then the fish kind of relaxes. You can pull your hook out and then get him into your cooler bag.
I'm on something.
All right, 3 minutes in, we just made a little move.
And it's a whiting.
And we got a whiting. It's what we wanted. I know I've said it a couple of times already, but it's just so important that 15-minute rule, if you're not getting the fish, move spots. We didn't move far. We moved maybe 100 feet?
Yeah, 100 feet.
You just got to keep moving sometimes, especially here in Port Phillip. You can't just sit in the one spot. Sometimes you can, but in these periods where we're 5 days after the full moon, where the fishing's that little bit tougher, and we wanted to do a video where the fishing was going to be that little bit tougher, you know, you just got to keep moving. You got to do everything you can. Keep shaking your burley pot, keep checking your baits, hang on to your rod. Yep, on. Good fish. Yep, and another one. So straight after I rebaited, bait was in the water for 10 seconds, and then onto another nice whiting. So these aren't what I call huge whiting, but they're just good size whiting.
A whiting.
Nice one, Theo.
Nice.
And you were giving your bait just that little bit of movement, weren't you?
Yeah. So we were casting out to the sand hole behind the boat, not getting any nibbles. So then I brought my hook and bait just behind the burley bucket. So not only, we can't really cast out to the sides of the boat because we're fishing in current, so it's pretty much straight back, but you can work from further back, closer in to find out where the fish are.
So as you saw back when I was teaching you about the rig, we made those long leaders, especially when the fish are a little bit finicky and they're not coming, you know, overboard every couple of minutes. It's really important that you have that big distance in between the sinker and the hook, and that's why we tie such a long leader. It is a little bit harder to manage, but you'll get used to it pretty quickly, but it's going to get you a lot more fish. Short leaders up near the sinker are no good at all. You definitely don't want to be doing that. And a lot of the pre-packaged stuff that you're going to buy is going to have a short leader, but you'll see now when Theo pulls his fish up, the distance between, and this would be the minimum distance you want, between the sinkers up there and the fish is all the way down here. And that's really important. That's about 1.5 meters. Yep, and on.
Looks like a better one.
Yeah, I think my drag might just be backed off a little bit. No, he's a good fish actually, you're right. There we go. and just lift your rod up with your left hand, obviously, if you're right-handed, so that the hand you're not winding with, you just lift it up in the air like you see, and then, like you saw me do, and then the whiting will just swing into you nicely. You can grab the line, and then you can deal with your fish. You don't want to do any, we're fishing just 12 pound, so you don't want to be doing any jerky movements. It's really important that you don't jerk it or yank it and try and flip it in the boat, because you could bust your line or bust your knot. You just want to just gently lift up and he'll come into you, grab him in your hand, get your hook out, I'm on, and dump him in your cooler. Now Theo's on, so this is what you call a hot bite. So that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
No matter how slow it was earlier, you just want to have all this stuff ready, all your baits, spare hooks. You don't want to have that stuff away, because who knows how long the bite's going to last for. Now Theo just dropped a fish, which is always going to happen in fishing, but it is something that you really don't love when whiting fishing, is it, Theo?
No.
Because that spooked fish can sometimes spook all the others, the one that you drop.
Yeah, exactly.
Missing's kind of okay, dropping isn't something that's ideal.
Especially in shallow water. Probably the shallower you are,
the less you want to drop fish.
the less you want to drop fish.
Look, it doesn't mean it's all over, but it might quieten it down for a few minutes, yeah?
Yeah.
So there you go. Doesn't always mean everything's going to shut down if you drop one. Within a minute, Theo's caught one, so things seem all good.
Yeah, they're back on.
They're back on.
Not a massive whiting.
No.
But if you are releasing smaller ones, maybe give them a little flick out the side of the boat. Again, it's like losing a fish. If you throw it back in just over the side, it may scare the rest of the school off under the boat.
Hang on. Feels like a better whiting.
Beautiful.
So we're about to hit the slack water. Things are going to go quiet. No run, no fun when you're whiting fishing.
Yeah.
So how long after you hit that tide change, we're about to come to low tide, and then the tide's going to start flooding in again. How long after we hit that low and it goes slack, do you think you should wait, or do you think you should expect the whiting to start fishing really well again?
I'd say between 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, yeah. So and a great option in Port Phillip when you do have that slack water is go for squid. These same areas that hold whiting are going to hold squid. Pull the squid jigs out, chuck them on the whiting rods, or if you've got your eggy rods with you, whatever you want to do, start catching squid. Then you've got yourself some food or some really fresh bait. As we thought, we're coming to that tide change. We're 15 minutes away from it, and everything has just quieted down. It's probably been, what, 8 minutes since we've had a fish?
Yeah.
And we expected that, and that's normal. So what we're going to do is make one move with the last little bit of tide we've got left, and then we might go mess around, catch some squid, and then start up again as the tide starts running back in.
Beautiful.
At the risk of sounding repetitive, again, you just have to make that move. As soon as we left at 8 minutes of not catching fish, that was it, 8 minutes, and we made a move, and we moved probably 250 meters, and the burley pot's been down for 30 seconds, and boom, we're on. Just a little guy, is he sized there?
Yes, he is.
Yep. So it's really one of the integral parts of whiting fishing is that movement, the burley, shaking the burley pot, obviously presenting the bait nicely, having the right rig. Distance between the sinker and the hook is a huge one. And they're the things that are going to bring you whiting success. It doesn't have to be hard. It isn't hard fishing, it's messy fishing. And it's not fishing where you're sitting back, you know, on the chair. You're standing here, hooking the fish like I've just done now. But that's what makes it fun. It's active. That's a nice whiting.
It's a good one.
Now the sun's well and truly out and up. It's going to be a pretty warm day today. I've just wet a towel. I'm just going to put my bits of squid on the towel and the pippies as well, and get them out of the bag now, just to stop them from getting warm and crusty, and just keep the wet towel, and you can just keep wetting that towel throughout the day. That way you got your baits out and they're easily accessible, but they're not going to dry up, and it'll keep them nice and fresh. So we just moved to another section of the bay. We've come over into the eastern side. We're pretty much in the middle, more towards the western side. Come down here for the flood tide because we're going to be going home soon, and this is where we've launched, down at Sorrento. And yeah, bait's been in the water for about, geez, a minute or two, and we've had a double hookup, which is great, and nice size whiting too. So again, it's just that we spent the slack period catching some squid, and now we've come in, moved positions for the flood tide. And it's going great so far. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I've run you through everything now on how to catch whiting, from the rigs and the setups and the rods and reels that you've got to use, when you should go, where you should fish, how you should fish while you're out there. We're at about, I think the last count we did, about 27, 28 whiting. We're going to stick around, fish the rest of this flood tide, probably get our bag. If we get bored, we'll go. If it gets too hot, we'll go. But we're really happy with the way the day's gone, and I'm just hoping that you've learned everything that you possibly need to get onto whiting yourself. Pretty sure that you have. I'm pretty sure we've covered everything, so thanks heaps for watching, and we'll catch you on the next episode.